This episode is brought to you by The Build, a new podcast from the guys behind Sincera, Mike O'Sullivan and Ian Myers. They built their company by figuring out clever solutions to a few important ad tech problems in their industry. And that's exactly what this show is about. Mike and Ian interview some of the smartest tech minds in the biz to hear about how they identified opportunities, solved their hardest challenges, and grew their businesses in the process. Listen to The Build with Mike O'Sullivan wherever you get your podcasts.
So there's a couple really interesting decisions we made. The first one is how to know it was the right time to pivot away from workplace turnover to pipeline implementation. And ultimately, it just became a simple numbers game. We had a by and far majority of clients who were already willing to pay for the employer workplace turnover solution, but were not able to set up the product without that implementation piece. Then they asked us to do the implementation piece as well. And by the time we finished the implementation piece, they had spent more than the cost of the workplace turnover product. My name is Tyler Hochman. I am the founder and CEO of FORE Enterprise.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries.
Spent 6 months moonlighting.
There's nothing on the back end.
Who share what it takes to change an industry.
I don't exactly know what to do
took
next.
many goes to get right.
Who built the teams that have their back.
The company is its people.
The teams help each other achieve
Most
more.
proud of our team.
Keeping scalability top of mind.
All that infrastructure was
Yes, we've been fighting it as we grow.
Total waste of time.
The stories you don't read in the headlines.
It's not an easy thing to achieve, mind
Took it
you.
off the shelf and dusted it off and tried it again.
To ride the ups and downs of the startup life.
You need to really want it.
It's not just about technology.
All this and more on Code Story.
I'm your host, Noah Labhart, and today how Tyler Hochman created a company to fully deploy your AI as your premier AI solutions architect. Today's episode is brought to you by .tech Domains, and this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, I was building my startup and went hunting for that perfect .com and found next to nothing. So I did what every founder does, settled. Here's what I wish someone had told me. You're building a tech startup, just get a .tech domain. It instantly tells investors and customers what you're about. Don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice. This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If your team is collecting large volumes of logs, metrics, and traces, but still struggling to get timely answers, Mesmo can help. Mesmo is an active telemetry platform that processes and enriches observability data in real time before it's stored or analyzed. That means lower data volume, lower cost, and faster root cause analysis across your existing observability tools. To see how it works, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's MEZMO.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. If you are building with AI coding tools, but your features keep breaking, you need to check out BrainGrid. It is the product management agent for AI builders. BrainGrid turns messy ideas into clear specs, tasks, and prompts that coding agents like Cursor and Claude can actually build the right way. Ship real software, not fragile prototypes. Start free at braingrid.ai. Tyler Hochman got started early in the world of entrepreneurship. In middle school, he got into gemology, fascinated by the formation of gems, becoming a young GIA certifier. This taught him to get out of his comfort zone, from which he started his first business as a junior at Stanford. Past that, it's been a similar process of identifying a problem and looking at how to build a solution. But outside of technology, he is married with a 1-year-old son and another child on the way. He loves spending time with his son, enjoying all the things parenthood throws at you. Tyler built a workforce turnover solution half a decade ago in the space of predicting employee turnover in a business. It got a lot of solid traction, but what he and his team noticed was that though people wanted to use the solution, they didn't have the infrastructure necessary to provide data to the tool. This led he and his team to swim a bit downstream to build that data pipeline for customers. This is the creation story of FORE Enterprise.
So we started FORE Enterprise. It was interesting. We started as a workplace turnover solution. So almost now half a decade ago, we were looking at all this turnover that was occurring in the COVID era and the post-COVID era with the Great Resignation and the different ways that jobs were being affected by remote work. And we created an AI solution that could predict when employees were going to stay or leave at a business with a relatively high degree of accuracy, call it 6 months out, 6 months to a year, and then also tell employers the main reason we are predicting why they're going to stay or leave. And then from there, the employer would be actually given targeted intervention solutions in order to retain that employee should they desire. And so that's how we started. It was a really cool AI product that got a lot of great traction. And then what's interesting about it, beyond just the product itself, was what we found is that a lot of people had a desire for that product, but they didn't have the necessary infrastructure to actually power it. Meaning they didn't have, we consumed a lot of private company data, and we consumed it in a specific way in order to power the product for each business. And the companies didn't have the infrastructure necessary to give us that data. Everything from literally getting it themselves, just structuring it, formatting it, storing it, and then ultimately outputting it to the tool. So then we swam a little bit downstream and we're like, okay, that seems to be the biggest moat for a lot of our clients in using our product. So why don't we just go and actually build that pipeline for them, and then they can go and power whatever AI tool they want. And we help them do that. And we also build additional AI tools as well. But we really became very solid at that solution architecture piece.
This will be interesting. So for FORE Enterprise, what would you consider, the quote unquote MVP, right, of what you've built there? Maybe it's the workforce turnover solution, or maybe it's like the first version of your team going and building those pipelines. I'm curious where you'll take that, but I'm curious about that and how long it took you to spin up and what sort of tools you were using to bring it to life.
Yeah, I would say it's probably the latter, given how distinct a pivot we made from the workplace turnover solution to the proprietary skill set and internal platform we developed to implement the pipeline for businesses. So I would say that was our MVP, was after that pivot and then the first time we did it. And it was definitely, to your point, I think it was a problem. What's interesting about it, it's not a very sexy problem. Being able to say, oh, I can predict your employees leaving before they even know themselves are leaving is something that an employer can immediately jump on and be like, wow, that sounds amazing. I would love to have that. So we had a lot of traction there. I think we have more real traction now in the sense that the problem that we're solving is very boring, very unsexy, but completely necessary to really do any AI tool that you want to, or any AI tool to a high degree of quality that you want to power.
I'm curious about maybe a decision or trade-off you had to make in that pivot and moving to that, building that the internal tooling to help you, build these pipelines for your customers, a decision or trade-off you had to make and how you coped with it.
So there's a couple really interesting decisions we made. The first one is how to know it was the right time to pivot away from workplace turnover to pipeline implementation. And ultimately, it just became a simple numbers game. We had a by and far majority of clients who were already willing to pay for the employer workplace turnover solution, but were not able to set up the product without that implementation piece. Then they asked us to do the implementation piece as well. And by the time we finished the implementation piece, they had spent more than the cost of the workplace turnover product. And so we're like, okay, the dollars here are in this earlier pipeline. Let's go and do that. And then we can continue to do the AI tooling and so on and so forth. But it was very much not being afraid to say that we have something that is very cool, but just because it is so cool doesn't necessarily make it the right product at the right time. And I think a lot of AI businesses right now are facing that exact problem. Like, the possibilities of AI are incredible, but are businesses set up in a way to leverage those possibilities? We say no. They need an architect such as ourselves, or there's others out there that can come in and create the necessary, like a contractor, create the underlying foundation, and then they can go and run with it. But that was one pivot. A second pivot, which in terms of internal tooling that we're using, we ourselves apply, we're a bunch of software engineers, right? And so I actually think the number one problem that AI solved, ironically, because it's created by software engineers, is a software engineering problem. Like, your ability to output code as a software engineer it's 30x. I mean, it's an insane amount of output that you can create now. And so how do we continue to grow our team responsibly while maintaining a very fluid and dynamic understanding of what AI tools exist to help our coding process and not overexpand and really maximize each person's potential, I think has been very cool. We've actually decided to slow our hiring down because we're able to get so much more output out of the existing team.
This episode is brought to you by The Build, a new podcast from the guys behind Sincera, Mike O'Sullivan and Ian Myers. They built their company by figuring out clever solutions to a few important ad tech problems in the industry, and that's exactly what this show is about. Mike and Ian interview some of the smartest tech minds at Magnite, Chalice, DoubleClick, and LiveRamp to hear about how they identified opportunities, solved their hardest challenges, and grew their businesses in the process. This show is for you if you've had some of these breakthrough moments yourself, or if you're seeking inspiration for the next one. Listen to The Build with Mike O'Sullivan wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by .tech Domains, and this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, when I was building my own tech startup, I went on the hunt for that elusive .com. Looked high, looked low, and guess what I found? Nothing. What I did find cost me an arm and a leg. So I did what every founder does under pressure. Threw in extra letters, settled for the less than optimal name. And here's what I wish someone had said to me back then. Noah, you're building a tech startup. Just get a .tech domain. Tech startup, .tech domain. It could not be more obvious. It tells investors, customers, and anyone who looks at your website, really, that tech is at the core of your build. And I've kicked myself plenty since, especially when I see the clean and sharp names tech companies have landed on .tech. Nothing.tech, 1x.tech, Aurora.tech, CES.tech, Ultra.tech, Alice.tech, Neon.tech, Blaze.tech, Pi.tech. You get the idea. So take it from someone who learned it the hard way. If you're building a tech startup, don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice. I'm curious about maturation, right, of FORE Enterprise. How have you matured what you offer? And, that could be from building things internally or process or things like that. But I'm really curious about roadmap. How did you go about building your roadmap for FORE Enterprise? And, what sort of criteria or, things that you follow to decide that, okay, this is the next most important thing to address?
I think if you looked at our roadmap from a series of paths and decisions, it would look like the craziest tree you've ever seen. It would be, there are at every point numerous options we can take, and being open to those options, I think, is what has allowed us to continue to have success. In terms of the criteria that we evaluate with each of those paths, the number one thing that I think of is, at any point, given how successful AI has been, how revolutionary it's been on businesses, how business models and business functions are changing rapidly, we are open to pretty strong pivots. Now, that being caveated with the fact that as we've matured, the degree at which we pivot has lessened. If we're at the beginning willing to do a 180-degree pivot, now we're at a 90 or a 75 or a 65. But we are constantly going into building our AI pipeline infrastructure in industries that we never touched before. One of the industries that we've really gotten a lot of interest in recently is in real estate. And we were not.
This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. Building with AI coding tools is exciting until the moment things start breaking. You ask for a small change and suddenly 3 other features stop working. AI gets confused, misses edge cases, and loses track of your intent. The problem is not code generation. The problem is planning. That is why BrainGrid exists. BrainGrid acts as your product management agent. It writes clear specification, maps UX flows, asks the clarifying questions you forgot to ask, and breaks big ideas into engineering-grade tasks that AI coding tools can build reliably. It guides Cursor, Claude Code, Replit, Windsurf, and others so they deliver features that work and keep working. Founders use BrainGrid to build real AI-native SaaS products without a technical background. If you want reliable features instead of fragile prototypes, try BrainGrid for free at braingrid.ai. That's braingrid.ai.
In real estate before, but figuring out how to use AI to automate a lot of the admin functions that take place in real estate, and even some of the analyst and associate functions, we've really cut our teeth in now and been spending the last, call it 4 or 5 months doing that. But that is a pivot in terms of we were never in that industry before, but we were open to where the possibilities of AI could take us, and never thinking that we had the answer, that the place we were in is the place we had to stay.
I'm curious about team, right? How do you go about building your team? And what do you look for in those people to indicate that they are the winning horses to join you?
I think right now it's all about being open to education. And I think, and it can take place within any demographic of type of person, which is what's so cool in my mind. Like AI is really democratizing the whole space. But as long as you are open to continue learning, and again, there's differences obviously between junior, mid-level, senior people, but AI is shrinking that gap, at least especially on the software engineering side. And like at FORE, we do almost, our president of engineering, he does almost a weekly kind of class that is literally updating the company on the new techniques that have come out, different ways, different prompts, different coding styles that are being particularly effective with certain tools. And that takes place almost every week. And he's learning, I'm learning, the company's learning, and really staying open to learning, I think, is foundational in someone that we would look for.
This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Your coding agents have access to your code base. Maybe you even connected other tools via MCPs. But access doesn't mean context. Agents can't reason across MCPs. They don't know your architectural decisions, your team's patterns, or why the API was shaped the way it is. So agents look in the wrong place and deliver bad outputs. Then you spend time correcting. More loops, more tokens. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If you're responsible for reliability, performance, or platform architecture, you already know the problem. Telemetry volume is growing faster than teams can manage it. Mesmo addresses this by moving observability upstream. Instead of storing everything and asking questions later, Mesmo processes telemetry in motion, filtering, transforming, and enriching logs, metrics, and traces before they reach your observability backend. The result is cleaner data, reduced ingestion costs, and faster root cause analysis using the tools you already rely on. Mesmo integrates with platforms like Datadog, Dynatrace, and open source stacks, giving teams more control without adding operational overhead. This is especially useful for platform engineers and SREs supporting complex distributed systems where context and speed matter. To see how active telemetry works in practice, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's MEZMO.com/codestory. Okay, I'm curious about scalability, right? How you approached that in the beginning, and maybe if there's been interesting areas where you've had to fight scale as you've grown, and that could be, execution, people, technology, all the things. Tell me about scale.
I think our process to scale, one day we could only hope to be as successful, and whether or not how you take the company, but they've been very successful, which is like the Palantir approach to scaling. They had these 4 deployed engineers, and everyone said they're a linear scale business because you are only getting so much output out of an engineer, and each engineer is on a unique project. And how do you get the huge gains that come from a true software business, those exponential style gains, if you're just using FORE deployed engineers? And ultimately, they prove that, well, you develop a skill set and then you build a platform. And I think that's what we did. And so in the beginning, 100%, we were on a linear growth trajectory where every person is responsible for X amount of output, and that pretty much, and then you just have to hire another person because there's no way to scale that beyond linear scale. But I think we took that same model. We developed and refined our skill set. We built internal tools and internal platforming, and now we're able to get more exponential gains where we can keep the team relatively as lean as it's always been, but take on new clients and still deliver that same or a greater level of quality.
So as you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built with FORE Enterprise, what are you most proud of?
What I would be most proud of is that our clients are very educated on the true cost of AI solutions and AI implementation in a way that I think most of any industry is not. And what I mean by that is that we take a lot of pride in being very transparent with our clients and very open to relatively heavy upfront expenditure in something that is and we try to make it as tangible as possible, but it definitely has a amount of intangibility in terms of can you really tangibly see, oh my God, my data ingestion engine just got X times faster, and now, things are becoming so much better, structured, and they're being stored in different storage. You can see the cost savings to that, and there are some, but it's definitely a little bit intangible. That being said, it is the most important thing towards being able to access these tools and then deliver ROI. And so I think our clients are really understanding of that and stuck with us through the more boring process of setting up the infrastructure, and then finally are seeing they're getting to reap those rewards. And we're very transparent about the timeline. We like to try to make the ROI for working with us within 6 months, but it takes a leap of faith is the wrong word. It just takes an element of not being able to see something as tangible as, okay, I'm now using this chat bot and it's reduced my customer service times by 50%. That we will get there, but in order to make that happen, you got to do the unsexy work first. And so that's what I would say is the thing I'm most proud of.
Let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
I would say it was committing to, and speaking to that earlier, our workplace turnover solution, we had a lot of virality and a lot of interest in. And I think we allowed that to continue to run that business for potentially longer than we should have. We kept allowing new business to be created and then didn't see as quickly as we should have how difficult it was going to be to actually implement the solutions for those clients. And so I think that was a mistake we made and one we learned from in terms of if a client wants that solution, they want to see ROI quickly, and a big piece of that is now what we build, but before then, we weren't able to accurately describe why it was taking so long.
So this will be interesting to hear. Tell me what the future looks like for Enterprise, for, what you offer for your team, where that positions for the industry, all the things.
We hope to keep the team lean. I think AI software engineering tooling is it's continued to become better and better. So we hope to stay open to learning, keeping the team lean by just making everyone better. And then in terms of the business directive, continue to refine our skill set, to continue to refine our platform, and then through that, be able to touch industries we've never touched before, continue to help the industries and the clients we're helping now. And even we've started this really cool project where now we're JVing some of the products we build with our actual clients, which allows us, as an example, in the real estate industry, now we're actually, not only are we building the solution for a client, but we are a part owner of that solution and want to go and take it to the broader market in that industry. So I think that's the future, and really staying sharp and disciplined, but at the same time open to new opportunity.
Tyler, let's switch to you. Who influences the way that you work? Name a person or many persons or something you look up to and why.
I'm most influenced by My family, I came from a family that prioritized like education, a heavy emphasis on education. And so my father, he always pushed for us to be open to learning. And obviously I keep saying that. And that's the biggest thing that I take away in my path is just the openness to new opportunities, the openness to say that what I don't know and be willing to admit that readily, then learn and then get better. And so I take a lot of that from my family. I had a lot of great mentors at Stanford. Interestingly enough, I had a professor who taught convex optimization, which was this very cool class, and he was almost one of the fathers of it. It's a unique type of math, and long-winded way of me saying there was very intense studying in finals that you had to do, and because of that, you got to experience just like the long grind, right? Like 72 hours, take minimal bathroom breaks and just grind it out. And so I think that kind of taught me that a little bit. But yeah, I continue to find new people to draw from in the AI space. I think you've got a lot of heroes in obviously a lot of the big tech guys, agree or disagree with them, but they are all pushing the frontier. And I think that's super cool.
Last question, Tyler. So you're getting on a plane and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world, and can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit since middle school?
I would say that the journey of entrepreneurship is one where, especially if you're the founder, 95% of the time, especially as businesses mature as well, you get to hear the things that aren't going well. And to me, that's defined, at least my journey of entrepreneurship, is no one's ever going to pat you on the back for doing a good job. That is literally the implication of what your role is. You pat other people on the back for doing a good job and very clearly understand that no one will pat you on the back, and nor they should. You always should be the most incentivized to make your business work. But just with an understanding that most of your day is going to be dealing with problems and putting out fires. But there is beauty in that. And there is something that it's unique to the entrepreneurial journey. And I think it's not something to be afraid of, but if you can make it something that you're excited about, then you will have a lot of success there.
I think that's fantastic advice. Well, Tyler, thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for telling the creation story of FORE Enterprise.
Thanks for having me on.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
Some of the best lessons don't come from a classroom. They come from experience. On The Power of Advice, a new podcast series from Capital Group, you'll hear from CEOs, investors, and founders about how they built careers, took risks, and reinvented themselves. If you're starting your own journey, this is the kind of advice you won't want to miss. Available wherever you get your podcasts. Published by Capital Client Group, Inc.
Capital One's tech team isn't just talking about multi-agentic AI. They already deployed one. It's called Chat Concierge, and it's simplifying car shopping. Using self-reflection and layered reasoning with live API checks, it doesn't just help buyers find a car they love. It helps schedule a test drive, get pre-approved for financing, and estimate trade-in value. Advanced, intuitive, and deployed. That's how they stack. That's technology at Capital One.